Welcome to Confessions of an EOS Implementer, a podcast by Talent Harbor. We share unique stories of EOS implementers and the companies they've transformed to give you a rare glimpse into the successes and the challenges of the system in action. I'm your host, Ryan Hogan. Let's jump in. Welcome to Confessions of an EOS Implementer, brought to you by Talent Harbor. Today, we are delighted to welcome Stu Wolff, a seasoned entrepreneur, certified EOS implementer who has masterfully scaled and sold his venture, the Wolff Group, to an industry leader. We cover all of the topics today. We cover right people, right seat, what to look for in partners and partnerships, how to make sure that core values and visions align, how the same criteria for finding the right partner and finding the right people to bring into your organization also aligns with acquisition strategy. And Stu gets into how those align on acquisition strategies from both sides of the fence, because Stu acquired 11 companies as a part of Stu Wolff when he was expanding his organization, and 10 out of 11 were successful. And if you know anything about acquisitions or the acquisition space, there are more failures in acquisition than there are successes. And so a 10 for 11 with a subsequent acquisition of the Wolff Group is an incredible story, an incredible journey. A lot of lessons, a lot of experience, a lot of wisdom. I hope you enjoy the show, and thanks for listening. Stu, thank you so much for joining Confessions of an EOS Implementer. Super stoked to have you. And the first thing that I really wanted to talk about today is your journey is incredible. And how do you get into the marketing and distribution in the food industry? And then more importantly, how do you take that from zero to over $100 million? I'm really excited to talk about this today.
Well, my passion had always been in the food industry. When I was in high school, I actually thought I wanted to own a restaurant because I worked in restaurants through high school and mostly and a lot into college as well. So that was a passion. And so I actually went into restaurant management for the first couple of years of my career once I graduated from Michigan State University. And I realized at that point, I loved the food industry, but didn't really love the operations side. I typically worked 2 p.m. till 3 or 4 a.m, 5, 6 days a week, always holidays, always weekends. And I realized it really wasn't who I was. I, recently had gotten married, wanted to enjoy time with my wife. And so it just didn't fit my lifestyle. So I went into when I went to school, I was a dual major in hospitality management as well as marketing. So that's when I thought, how do I tie the two together? Got into the food brokerage industry, sales and marketing agency, where we represent food manufacturers and provide sales and marketing services. And I got started in that industry through just calling some different companies. Ended up starting at an entry level. I soon became a manager of that department. Then soon became had stock in that company and became a minority shareholder. And it was a great experience. But then I was ready for my own. And what I ended up doing was buying out that business from my initial organization I started with. And at the same time, merged my business in with what was my previous partner's business and joined one organization. And it was an experience. There's a lot. I learned so much besides just running a business, but running a business with a partner was a whole different world and whole different experience. So I can go on and on. You tell me where you want me to go from here, Ryan. Because
let's start, because there's a lot. Like I want to get into some of these acquisitions. The partnership is a really interesting topic. Actually, I was just talking to my former partner, Derek Smith. Shout out if he's listening. And we talked about kind of the trials and tribulations and how many people screw up partnerships and don't know how to get on the same page. And him and I, like, we've been through war together, and somehow we're still great friends today. And so I don't really know what the magic is, but I'd love to get into that as well. One of the things you said is you got out of college, you had this interest in the restaurant and hospitality industry. And then once you kind of peek behind the curtain, you were like, I mean, I like it, but the operations in the restaurant, maybe better left for someone else. And I can figure out the marketing, distribution, the brokerage side of things. But you said when you started right out of college, you went from entry level and then you quickly moved up. And that seems to be a common theme amongst successful people, is like understanding how to navigate and perform inside of organizations. Like, what was kind of your secret sauce day one, and then to that kind of natural progression?
I think one quality I have that I think is a strength is I really try to understand the people that I work with and the people I surround myself with. So having just great people around me makes a difference, and it's I don't take the credit for it. It's having the right people with me, and as a team, we can accomplish a lot. And so I think having that ability to connect with your people, show you care about them, literally from the heart, and just be committed to that. And I think that was something that helped me grow my career.
And there's like thoughts out there, like when you care about the people and you're empathetic and you kind of you get to know people on a deeper level outside of just professionally, like sometimes that inhibits the ability to be able to coach, mentor, guide. Like, where have you found kind of the balance between that love and that care and empathy, and also being able to say, hey, you need to step up because we're kind of off track right now?
Yeah. And I needed to learn that, very honestly, because it was hard for me, because I valued connections. I valued being connected to others. And what I learned, and it took some time, was I needed to be kind, not nice. And for the beginning of my career, I thought being nice was the right way to go. And nice is really not, as just trying to, nice is trying to be nice to others. Where kind is being really open and honest with others and actually helping them. And what I realized was I really wasn't helping my teammates when I wasn't sharing with them not just their strengths, but opportunities for growth and where they needed to work on. And it took me some time to learn that and understand that. And I truly believe that at the core, that if you really care about your people, then be kind. Share with them what they need to hear so they can grow. Or they might realize this isn't the place for them, and that's okay. So find a place that is better for them.
And is there a specific tactic or strategy you use for that? Like one that was recommended to me a long time ago was this concept of a sandwich. And so the first thing you do, or maybe it was an Oreo cookie, but the first thing that you do is you come in with something, let's say nice, and then you get into the kindness and then the niceness. So you open up with something like, hey, these are some areas that you're really excelling in, like you're doing incredible. These are some things you want to work on. Okay, atta boy, atta girl, like keep up the great work. Did you have different tactics or strategies? Did you just come out with it? Like how do some of those conversations go?
Yeah, I'd say originally it was, whether that's the sandwich or the Oreo, I'd always start off with something nice, and then get to the meat. And I still believe in that. But what I've learned over the years, and as we ran our business on EOS and then ultimately became an EOS implementer, we had some tools to use to help communicate with our team members and how to help coach them up, or sometimes realize we got to coach them out. So, one of those tools, the people analyzer tool, that really helps clarify that. But I didn't have that in the beginning of my career. But once we started running on EOS, that gave me kind of a foundational tool to work from. The other is, and we instituted this at Wolff Group, was having quarterly conversations with our employees. And that's an informal conversation. It can start off simply with, hey, I heard your son broke his arm. How are things going? What's happening? Again, connecting, showing you care about them as a human being, not just as a teammate, employee, etc. And then really digging into, hey, so what's working? How are things going? Share some things that, some wins you've had recently. And then, hey, where are some challenges or obstacles? Are there things that are holding you back from being your best? If so, as a leader, how can I help open those doors? And then get into, hey, here's where I see great things happening. And here's where I think, we all need to own up. And I think there's room for you to grow here. And here are some of the areas I'd like to see you put time and energy into. And I feel that connects with people. And because showing you care will help open them up and feel more comfortable sharing, because the more vulnerable people are, the more honest conversations we have, the more we connect, and the more we'll trust in each other.
Yeah, you and I realized this from our conversation today, and also the conversation that we had a few weeks ago during the discovery call, is how passionate both you and I are about people and the right people, and making sure that as people are entering the organization, before they even get there, pre-hire, while they're in the organization, that the people component is the biggest, at least to me, success factor. So if you've got the right people around you, the right team, and you've got everybody focused on the right things, there's not an industry that you can't succeed in. And that's exactly what you did. And so as you're growing the Wolff Group, like, what were some of the whitewater periods? When I think back to Hunt a Killer, like 0 to, call it maybe 2 million, it was kind of similar systems and processes, and then everything broke. And then 2 to 10, I would say around 10, everything broke. 25, everything broke. And you would have to kind of piece things back together, whether it was people or process or systems, measurements, what industries that you're focusing on. What were some of the challenges that you had as you're scaling the organization?
Yeah. So a big part of our strategy to scale had to do with acquisitions. We did 11 strategic acquisitions throughout the Midwest region. And the key tool that we used to help identify those acquisitions, and 10 out of 11 were winners. One was not, okay? And I'll explain it in a minute. But it wasn't about the alignment of the manufacturers we represented with them. It was all about core values. If our core values aligned with their core values, we had a much greater chance of success. On the flip side, if we were not aligned on core values, there's a greater chance of failure. And we experienced that. So that standpoint, getting core value alignment was key. And then being able to scale that culture we had outside of Michigan into our acquisitions in Ohio, Pennsylvania, Indiana, Illinois, et cetera. So it was now we built a culture. Now we needed to scale that culture elsewhere. But starting with a base where core values were aligned made it much easier. Not that it was easy, but it made it a lot easier to be able to do that. So building that culture was critical. Getting the right people in the right seats. That was, again, as we grew in scale, the concept of that was hard for people. So we just needed to keep working toward that. And what I've learned is patience is really important, because we needed our team to really get behind our vision and our plan. And so as you acquire and bring on new people into the organization, we need them to understand the vision and where we're going. and understand how core values and having the right people in the right seats, you have to have both, make a difference. And so that was, that was a bit of a struggle, but we helped move us forward in the long run. Before we started our acquisitions, we wanted to be that kind of that platform model to work from. So getting our systems and processes in place was a must. Because originally there was just a lot of chaos in our business, in our Wolff Group company. We just needed to get our act together, and we needed to document our processes, get our business systemized so we can scale. So before we started acquisitions, that was one of the things I really focused on, is we can't scale, we can't acquire until we've got our stuff together. Okay. So documenting our processes, what was the Wolff Group way of doing business? We needed to know that so we can educate others. Because when you start layering in, just think about it, 11 different organizations with 11 different entrepreneurs, and everyone thinks they do it the right way, that can be really challenging. So we needed to have our way of doing business. And this was, as we acquired, we didn't wait a year, 2 years, 3 years to flip the names of companies. We did it day one, because now we're Wolff Group in Cincinnati and Wolff Group in Cleveland. And we needed to now start operating as Wolff Group, not another company that's just under our umbrella. So we needed our systems and processes being consistent in how we operated. And that helped us scale quicker.
One of the things, and I'm sure you're aware of this, like 10 for 11 is phenomenal from a success standpoint. I've been having conversations over the last few weeks about acquisitions, and the thing that surprised me the most was the greater than 50% failure rate for the acquisition strategy. And I think one person was talking about it from private equity, and the thing that like struck me is, like, we always read the headlines about these acquisitions, but very rarely do we track them 4, 5, a decade later to see how they turned out. And the reality is a lot of them don't turn out. And so a 10 for 11 is incredible. When you're thinking about, and this deals with this has a great parallel to people as well. Like, when you're thinking about the alignment of culture and the alignment of values, how would you assess that in a company that you're looking to acquire? Is this something where you're like, hey, ship me your VTO, let me take a look, let me put it up next to mine, and we'll see if this works? Was it more kind of qualitative than that? Like, is it just a gut feel? How did you do that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I wish other companies had VTOs, but most don't, and we never acquired one that did. So it really was spending time with the, everything starts at the top of an organization. So it's spending time with the owners or founders of the business, really getting to, you get a feel whether there's a good fit or not, and really listening to that inner voice. And I do at some point want to go back to that whole partnership issue, because I think it's really important. But listening to that inner voice and listening to that gut instinct, because that's a really important piece, and listening to it, whether it's saying yay or nay, but really listening to it. And then, having the opportunity to talk to, again, in my industry, hey, what do you know about this company or this person? And just doing some feeling around just to say, okay, I got a really good feeling, but let me get some different perspective. And just hearing some other perspectives helped either reinforce or question things. And then, utilizing our core values that we had into questions to help see if they actually share some of those or not just saying, hey, here are our core values, what do you think? But just asking open-ended questions based on our core values to see how they actually live their life, how they run their business, and that helped give me insight as well.
Got it. And when people think about acquisition, sometimes it's about you're acquiring customers. Sometimes it's, you're acquiring assets. Sometimes you're just acquiring cash flow.
Right.
It sounds like you were looking for something, like you were acquiring businesses that mirrored or were aligned with not just what you were already doing, but were aligned with the values of that organization. And so when you bought these, like, was this I spoken wheel's probably not a good word for it, but like, were they independently operated and they just had the Wolff name and you threw some processes and the VTO, or was this like Wolff was the headquarters, that's where decisions and everything was made, and everybody else would kind of adopt those same principles?
Oh yeah, these were each acquisition was fully 100% integrated into Wolff Group. It was not by name. It was not an act. It was not a mirror. It was real. That was again a key to being able to scale quicker. Again, we had a very clear vision of our strategy for acquisitions. We were based in Michigan. I'm based in the Detroit area. I don't know anything about the Cleveland market, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati. However, what we were looking for in our ideal acquisition target were, one, those that aligned with our core values, and two, where the owner or owners understood our vision, wanted to be a part of that vision, and wanted to have a skin in the game and grow their areas. So we customized there was not one acquisition that was the exact same as another. We customized each acquisition based on the owner's needs and wants, and ours, obviously, to align. And so we had some owners that they didn't want a buyout, they just wanted stock in Wolff Group. We had some that wanted partial buyout, partial stock. We had some partners didn't want any stock. And as long as there was a local owner is the key that we wanted. Somebody that had that owner mindset to run that market. That's what we were looking for. We were not looking for, because some of our competition were looking for people ready to retire. And that's another strategy. But then you need to bring in leadership to help now run that market and know that market. And that's another strategy. That was not the strategy we had.
Do you think that there is a strategy that has a higher success rate?
Well, I can just go by ours and what I saw from our competitors. I believed in our strategy because it worked. And Ryan, you're right. It goes back to people, because it was finding that alignment of the right people, but they had to understand and buy into our vision, because we were in an industry that we were predicting was going to go through a major consolidation in a period of 3 to 5 years. And I am not saying I am a genius, so please, because I am not. But my newer business partner, Mike McDonald, and I shared a common vision, and we understood and had a passion and a belief where the market was going. Now, most of our competitors in our industry thought we were absolutely insane and nuts, and that will never, ever happen as far as the vision we had. But I will tell you, the vision we had was exactly what happened. And again, I'm not taking credit for it. I'm just saying we were right on target with how our industry consolidated. We were in the right place at the right time, and we were so prepared for it.
That you just brought up the partnership again, and like, this is a topic we have to get into, because you just gave some great credit, and I think you qualified it with like my new partner or so, which means there was a former partner. So what goes into a great partnership? How do you find them? Like, let's start with that and see where this goes.
Yeah, I learned a lot, and it was painful. To be very frank, when I was looking for a business partner, again, when I was buying out the division of the company business I was running, and I realized we needed greater scale, And so what I did was I found my new business partner, because on paper, it was a perfect fit. He was strong in certain areas. My business was strong in certain areas. You bring the two together, it looked like it should be solid as a rock, makes so much sense. What I didn't do was, one, listen to my gut, because my gut was going insane, saying this is not the right person to partner with. And I just didn't take that whole people part into consideration. Probably why I'm so passionate now about people is because I learned a very difficult lesson. And so my first partner and I, we were partners for almost 10 years. And I'll explain. He was on the west side of Michigan. I was on the east side of Michigan. We were 2.5 hours apart. Our business and our industry just was growing. And you know, when your business is growing, you're just trying to keep up with it and just trying to continue to build and grow and build and grow. And then all of a sudden, about 8 years into it, we hit a ceiling. We got stuck. Now, during those 7-8 years of growth, I knew in my heart and in my gut, didn't feel good, didn't feel right, but hey, seems to be working. So who am I to say, why would I listen to that feeling inside? But what happened when we got stuck, you know, it's like if your car is driving and it's driving fine, you're not looking for problems. But when all of a sudden it stalls, now we're looking under the hood and we're trying to figure out, why did it stall? And we found out, at least I found out why it stalled. And we had started the EOS process at that time. When we got stuck, I could not figure out what to do. I'd read a book, we'd try something, 45, 60 days later, 90 days, it fell off the cliff. Then I'd read another book, try something else. Just couldn't get it to stick. And we found EOS. Gino Wickman, who founded it, was my business coach, my EOS implementer. And it was a game changer for us. I didn't know anything about core values. I couldn't spell core values. I told Gino, we don't need core values. He helped set the record straight for me. And going through the EOS process, we were a year into the EOS process when it hit me why we were stuck. I can be a little slow sometimes. So, but my previous partner and I were not aligned on core values. He barely, for anyone who understands the people analyzer tool, he barely passed the people analyzer tool. I think some people were being nice, not kind, and he barely passed it. And we were not aligned on our vision. And he was very inconsistent with his version of the vision. And I can't operate like that. So it was that 1 year into EOS, and then he did something that just was kind of a last straw for me and truly broke trust for me, was when I basically gave him 3 options. He buys me out, I buy him out, or we sell the company. But the message was I could not continue to be in business with him. And making a very long story short, and it was really due to one of my employees, Ray. I was on our leadership team for the entire ride. He and I were the only same people on the leadership team from the time we started EOS until I exited the business. And he was the person that came up to me and said, you know, because I was actually going to sell the business to Fred. And he said, if you sell this business to him, we will be out of business within a year. At that time, we had about 42 employees. He said, all of these employees, they will be gone. This business will not be here. And it was that moment that was a game changer for me. And it was when I changed my mindset that I needed to save the company. And my previous partner ended up, without knowing, gave me the opportunity to do that. That wasn't his intention, but that's what happened. And from that, I always say, and I always believe in my life, everything happens for a reason. And the stars aligned, and he opened the door to letting me do that. Again, that was not his plan. And I ended up buying out the rest of the business, brought on a new business partner, Mike McDonald. He and I were in the business from the first business that I was in. We were partners then. And from that point forward, talk about right people, right seats, having a strong leadership team, sharing a common vision is when we took off. It's at that point when it was in that next 5 years, we did 11 strategic acquisitions. We doubled our business every year for the next 5 years. And we were getting our company positioned for the future. And we were right on target for where the market was going. But it was painful. It created strain for me. That first partnership, again, it was almost 10 years, created a lot of pain, a lot of angst, created stress, not just for me, but within my family, and affected my relationships with my wife, with my kids, because I can't just disconnect it and come home. It's just part of me. And it was really a tough time. And I learned a lot, but I wouldn't want to repeat it again.
When you talk about the alignment and vision, so you talked a little bit about core values, people analyzer, barely passing the people analyzer. When you're trying to find alignment on a vision, is this a matter of the conversations that you're happening with your partner, maybe it's a same page meeting or whatever the case is, whatever tool that you're using? Is this a matter of saying like, this is where we want to be in 10 years and aligning around that? Or is it also about the strategy and how to achieve that? Like, I guess, which one do you think is more important there?
So what we started with was our 10-year target, our core target. Where do we want to be 10 years from now? When we built that, we were in the brokerage business. We never really measured sales dollars. We measured the commission revenue that we generated. So, when we started with EOS, we were doing about $4.5 million in commission revenue. And at that time, we probably got paid about a 5% commission. If you do the math, I can't even think about what the number is at the moment. But it was probably $150 million in business or so we were managing. But we needed that vision in place. And when we started, again, about $4.5 million, our 10-year target, our core target was $40 million in 10 years. And it was a big, hairy, audacious goal. And it met the criteria, which I stress to my clients today. It's gotta feel exciting, but it's gotta create this angst and pit in your stomach and thinking, how the hell are we ever going to be a $40 million organization? But we believed there was the market was there. We just needed to build and do the right things to get there. So that was the basis for how we built. Then acquisitions became, okay, we can't do this just organically. We're going to need to acquire. We did try to organically open new markets on our own, and those did not do well. That was a struggle. It took so much longer, and it was painful as well. So we decided acquisitions was the right strategy. And again, that's why that impacted our strategy, where we wanted owner-operators in each market, experts in the market that had skin in the game. And with that, then we were able to, that helped clarify, again, help paint that 3-year picture that we needed. And that gave us, again, a vision, a picture of what we wanted to look like 3 years from now, which then impacted our 1-year plan, which then impacted what we did every quarter, every month, every week, every day. So we were actually working towards that $40 million number. We just didn't feel like it was, because as long as we worked our plan, executed on the 1-year plan, that's something we had control over. 3 years out, a little bit. 10 years out, no way. There's no way we would have predicted there would have been a pandemic that shut the world down for a period of time. But we did know enough in 1 year what we could achieve. And we focused on executing on that. And it was that one step at a time that got us to build. We built a strong foundation, one brick at a time, 1 year at a time. And from that, we were able to continue to build and grow.
That's I was talking to Dave Fiedner yesterday, and this is the second time in 24 hours where now we're starting to create a trend. I think it's 3 data points you need a trend. When you talk about local ownership, so ownership in whatever that market, he was doing international expansion, and he said the key to success was somebody had skin in the game in that market that we would go into. And that's how we would stand it up. And it sounds like you took a very similar approach. It's really interesting.
Yeah, David's a great guy. And I would say a really smart guy now too. That was a key for our success.
What you said when you were trying to implement some of these other systems, and so you guys had hit a ceiling, and you've identified that there was a problem. We have stalled. There is something going on that we can't see. We can see it, but we're having trouble identifying the root cause of it. And you said you started implementing maybe some other things. I was the same way. So I was in Vistage. And so my team used to hate Fridays after my Thursday Vistage meeting because I had every good idea for that month coming hot. But why didn't those other systems, processes, why didn't they stick?
I had a leadership team of 8 people. Keep in mind, we had a culture issue in our company. Those that were aligned with my first partner saw life one way. Those that were aligned with me, so we had 2 different factions within our leadership team. When I tell you, I would walk into our Grand Rapids office and I felt, and that was on the west side of the state of Michigan, I felt uncomfortable. That told me something. I didn't feel, and here I'm owned half the company, I didn't feel comfortable in my own company in that office. We had 2 different cultures going. That was a big issue. Didn't understand it at the time, but that held us back. That was what caused us hitting a ceiling. And it all started with myself and my business partner because we were not aligned. But we weren't, we'd start on something. I'd say, okay, hey, here, I loved Good to Great. Here's some great pieces I pulled out of that book. And let's start on it. But you know what? There wasn't a how to do it. There wasn't a step-by-step. There wasn't this process laid out. And Good to Great, it was all these big corporations. And I'm thinking, how do I apply this to a small business? And I obviously didn't apply it well because it didn't stick. But when we learned about EOS, and I learned about EOS from my peer group because I was in a Vistage-like type peer group, and I was on the issues list every meeting at Partnership Issues. And somebody in there said, you should go talk to this guy, Gino Wickman. He developed this process. You need this. And he was right. And it changed my life. And that had a system that I could understand. It also brought in this third party that was not tied to one faction or the other faction in our business. It was a neutral third party that had a proven process and just follow the process. And it worked. Now, not everybody that was originally on the leadership team stayed on the leadership team. But that's life. Didn't have all the right people in the right seats. And we were committed to that.
The amount of times that I hear from implementers of the first 12 months of implementation, if a company actually sticks with it, there's going to be changes on the leadership team. It sounds like that's just a natural, like getting everybody aligned, identifying the core values. Like generally there are people on the team that aren't going to align. And that's not a good thing or a bad thing. And I think we get lost in this trap of like, oh, well, it makes that like that's good and that's bad. Like it's not bad. it just means that there's another kind of culture out there, another company where that person would do incredible things. It's just not what makes us successful here at company A or wherever it is. When So you grew this, you grew it through acquisition, and then eventually it changed. It went from acquiring other companies to now you were getting looks. How did that come about?
How did we look at from selling the business?
Yeah. Did you guys take your company out to market when you started to see the dynamics? Did someone come knocking on your door? So
we actually had a big vision, bigger than our 10-year target and our core target. So once we got our model operating in the Midwest, our real bigger vision was to become a national broker agency. And we were in the process of working towards that. At one point, I hosted a meeting in the Hyatt in Dallas. I was there about a couple months ago, so it was weird being back there. And I invited about 45 brokers from around the country to come to it. People that I've talked to were sharing the vision of a national organization, had a private equity company that was interested to partner with us. They were at the meeting as well. And what I learned from that was we needed to, he brought up a great point. He said, you're trying to herd too many cats. When you think about 45 entrepreneurs in one room, everyone thinks they do it the best and right way. And so we learned, let's take a regional approach. Let's focus on 4 or 5 groups, not 45. And we were starting to gain traction there. But then our industry consolidated quickly. So we never put ourselves out for market. We were in the process of looking to build a national organization. Then acquisitions started happening in our industry. Again, that big roll-up was starting. And again, we were right on target with it. And we were approached. It's funny because when it rains, it pours. We had 3 companies interested in us all at the same time. And we didn't ask for any one of them, but they all 3 approached at the same time. And this might sound strange, but we made a decision based on who did our core values align with the most. And that's how we made our decision as to who we were going to be sold to and acquired by.
And did you bring advisors or a broker into the picture? Or did you have so much experience being on the other side of the table that you kind of knew how to move that process along, maximize value, and all those other things?
Yeah, so we didn't. In retrospect, we probably could have, should have used some more of outside people and with knowledge in the selling of businesses. But we had a really good handle on what we felt our value was. Because we acquired 11 companies in our industry. So we had a good foundation. However, we ended up selling at a higher multiple, a good 20-25% higher than where the industry was, because we actually had a strong leadership team. We had a great culture. We had systems and processes in place, and that created value for our business, and it was recognized and paid for. I always tell when I'm talking to a potential EOS client and I explain to them the investment involved in EOS, I always refer back to, hey, we ran our business with Gino as our business coach for somewhere between 8 and 9 years, every quarter. And I attain that. The premium we got for selling our business, that extra 20-25%, I look at the investment we made in EOS and the sessions we paid Gino. And at that time, I don't know, we probably spent $200,000 over a 9-year period to what that 20-25% gain was. It was by far the best investment we could have ever made, best return we could have ever got. And I share that with clients or potential clients that, you've got to look at EOS as an investment. It's not an expense, because it will increase the value of your business. And it
What's
does.
what's your thought process on the whole graduation? Because I when you just said 8 to 9 years, like once we started, once we had an expert implementer, like the perspective, the value, the keeping everybody on the same page, like we went way past 2 years. And like, what's kind of your thought process there? Like, if companies get it, like, are they okay to move on? Or are you of the mindset where it's like having an outside perspective, even if you understand the system inside and out, having someone that can speak the truth, is not already involved in a faction, that can bring that into a session room, like there's ongoing value to that.
Yeah. Obviously, we saw the value in having Gino with us 8-9 years. And the only reason we stopped is after we sold the business to a national organization, Gino said, you really should stop. It's not going to work for you in the region. And we said, no, we want to keep going. And we did it for about a year, but he was right, because we couldn't make decisions within our room. The leadership team, we just couldn't we weren't in control of a lot of the decisions, and that's when it stopped working. However, most of my clients are way beyond 2 years. And I don't encourage people to stop. I do let them know you can move on. You can do this on your own. When you're 80% and greater on the organizational checkup, you have that opportunity to move on, unless you feel there's value in having me facilitate our quarterlies and our 2-day annuals. Otherwise, you are prepared and ready to move on. I would say 80+% of my clients stay on beyond 2 years. Most of mine I've had long-term.
And what's interesting, you talked about this a little bit of even after the acquisition, like you had stayed with the company. Like, what's that like, being a visionary, and like, I make all the decisions and I make the right decisions, because it all played out the way that we envisioned, to like, now you're part of another organization. And like, from what I hear, like, most people only stay a year or two. I didn't stay at all. Derek's still at the acquiring party, but you stayed. And what was that like?
Yeah, I stayed for probably about 4.5 years or so. Gino said I would never make it. So it was really, I'll be very vulnerable and very honest. The first 6 months after we sold, I was still kind of doing what I was doing before, running the Midwest. Didn't feel any big change. But on that 6-month mark is when they all of a sudden, the corporate head of all of a sudden came down. Okay, the entire company needs to reduce payroll by 10%. And when I sold the business, we were 165 employees, and we moved into a 40,000 employee organization. So big change. Getting that edict blew my mind, because we were hitting all our numbers. We were right where we needed to be. And wasn't a place for us to be cutting. Made no sense. And that was the first time I realized I sold my business. Might sound nuts, but that's when I realized I lost control of making those decisions. And that was a really hard reality. And it kind of got me depressed, honestly. And it hit me hard. I actually went to a therapist because it really hit me hard. And got out of it, but then moved into a new position within the company, leading corporate distribution. And that added energy and excitement. It was something new to the industry. It was new for me. And I really liked it. Just helped me because I could see where we were going, and I wanted to be a part of leading that. And that got me excited. And that worked till about the about 2.5 years after we sold. I sold to a company called Acosta Sales and Marketing. And they then sold to the Carlyle Group, private equity out of DC, and things changed. Everyone that was in the C-suite at Acosta was no longer there. They brought in a whole new C-suite, didn't know one person on it. I really felt disconnected, felt they brought in people that didn't really understand the industry. I lasted about another maybe 2 years from that point. And with a focus on, well, what's my next chapter going to be? Because I know I know either my expiration date will either run from them or it's going to run from me. I'd rather make that decision. And so it was a lot tougher transition than I ever thought. Really hard.
I'm surprised you stayed that long. And maybe you just you did it to prove Gino wrong. Would you have stayed longer? Because like what's interesting about this is like you stayed and once Acosta got acquired, like that, then you kind of saw the writing on the wall where you're like, okay, like I got used to or accustomed to this new change. This one I can't get used to because it's just completely different. But would you have stayed? Do you think longer in the absence of that? Okay. So
no,
what's happening?
I knew I was, I didn't have that. I was missing the passion, energy, excitement. What I ended up feeling like was I was doing a job and I didn't like that feeling. I love feeling energy, passion, and excitement and never thought about it as a job. That's just what I do. But it had a very different feeling. And so I knew I just needed to figure out what was going to give me that passion, that energy, and that excitement. And I needed some time to think of it. And honestly, it afforded me time to think about it.
And you got in the EOS. You became an employee. Like, how did that? I realize we're short on time, but I am deeply curious of like. Obviously, you found a passion for this. You saw the framework and the system in action, and that was your calling.
Yeah, I realized throughout my career, I was at Michigan State University. I ended up becoming a quote unquote associate professor. I was just I went in every quarter and had discussed with a class the sales and marketing side of the food industry. So I realized I really loved kind of the teaching and sharing. And I also understood how EOS changed my life, impacted my family, impacted my employees, how it impacted our customers. And I really honestly liked the flexibility. I did not want to kind of have that job again. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to just like start up a whole new business again. I just wasn't sure. But becoming an EOS implementer was starting my own business. It was just myself at the time. I now have an assistant. And I remember sitting down with Gino because I asked him, I said, do you get bored doing this? It's like you're doing the same thing over and over. He started laughing. He goes, oh no, wait till you see, once you have clients, you're going to see every client is so different. The personalities, you will see it's very different. And I absolutely love what I do. I'm helping my clients. They've made tremendous change and that's what fuels me. It makes me feel good from the inside out. That's it. It impacts others, and I look forward to it. Every session day I have, I look forward to it.
What do you look for in your clients? Like, are you locally and regionally focused? Do you look for different sectors? Are you open to anything? Like, what does your ideal client look like?
Great question. A good portion of my clients just happens to be our professional services, law firms, medical, dental, wealth management, insurance. I also have distribution, manufacturing, all the others, but that's the bulk of my clients are in those professional services. So it just naturally became a sweet spot for me. But the biggest thing is they just need to be willing to be open to change. I've run into a couple of clients that I will just say egos get in the way. Well, we'd love to say we're running on EOS, but we want to do it our way. Well, I don't subscribe to that. Either get on EOS or go do it your own way. I just don't need to be a part of it, and that's fine. But I know a way that works, and just please be open-minded to change and be committed to that. And that's ideal. And I also want people to want to grow their business, because this is a change agent. This will impact your business, your people. And I think as long as you want to grow it, I'd love to be a part of it.
Awesome. Stu, if someone just listened to this recording, or they've been watching it live and they're like, I need Stu as my implementer, how would they get a hold of you?
So, a few ways. My website is wolffleadershipllc.com. My email, swolff, WOLFF, 2 F's and Wolf, at wolffleadershipllc.com. And my cell is 248-310-8026.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We covered so many topics today. Like, there was like a crash course in people, partners, acquisitions on both sides, staying along. Like, we covered so much today. So I wanted to thank you for taking the time, coming on, sharing your wisdom and experience. And this has been super enlightening.
Oh, thank you for having me. It was an honor to be here with you, Ryan. I love the premise of your business. And the one thing I emphasize to every client I have, and it's right in alignment with what your business is all about at Talent Harbor, is just commit to right people in the right seats. If you do that, your life will be so much easier. You'll get where you want to go faster, and you'll really enjoy the time.
Love it. I knew we were 100% aligned on that the first time that we talked.
So true.
I appreciate it. And be in touch and see you soon.
You got it. Thank you, Ryan.
Right. Thanks.
See ya.
Confessions of an EOS Implementer is brought to you by Talent Harbor. To find out more about Talent Harbor and our fractional services and talent search solutions for businesses that operate on EOS, visit talentharbor.com. And then make sure to search for EOS Implementer in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Make sure to click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. And on behalf of the team here at Talent Harbor, thanks for listening.